you someone who tries to drive while distracted by your phone? Someone who props it on the steering wheel or peeks down at it for a glance? Or just scrolls and scrolls? If so, you could be the next person to get into a fender bender, get a ticket, veer off the road, or even cause a crash that kills you or someone else. Enough already. Put the phone away or pay. Paid for by NHTSA.
Introducing Instagram Teen Accounts, a new way to keep your teen safer as they grow, like making sure they always have their seatbelt on.
All right, buckle up. Good job.
New Instagram Teen Accounts, automatic protections for who can contact your teen and the content they can see.
Surprise bill? Need fast funds? CashNet USA can help. When you need money fast, be the hero.
Apply in minutes at cashnetusa.com and get a fast decision. All loans subject to lender approval. Speed of funding is subject to verifications and your bank's processing times.
Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Shit That Goes Under Our Heads, the podcast where we normalize conversations around mental health.
That's right. I'm Dirty Skittles, and alongside my amazing co-host, G-Rex, we are here to share stories and tips from our incredible guests.
Each episode, we deep dive into struggles and triumphs of mental health, offering practical advice and heartfelt support.
Because no one should feel alone in their journey. Join us as we break the stigma and build a community of understanding and compassion.
Tune in and let's start talking about the shit that goes on in our heads. Three, two, one. Welcome back to another episode of Shit That Goes On Our Heads. I'm here today with my amazing co-host, Dirty Skittles, and we have an amazing guest, Summer. Welcome, Summer. I'm so excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. I feel so honored in the presence of greatness.
Ooh.
Oh,
Let me get my husband down here and you can repeat that one more time.
Just play it back for him.
Yeah.
Over and over again. There you go. I'm so excited to have you on. It's been forever since we did a pre-recording, but I'm just excited to hear more about you and what makes Summer.
What a loaded question.
We're starting.
A bunch of stress, depression, and anxiety, I think, make me up, honestly, so I don't know. I feel like there's just so much that goes on beneath the surface. And I feel like it's just an uphill battle every single day to kind of keep my head above water. But somehow I am still here. And if I can do it, most people could probably hack it out.
What do you think makes you try every day? Where does that fight come from?
I mean, sometimes I think it's just I'm hardwired for survival. There are some days I feel that way. Some days I feel like, hey, it's because people that know me and love me would feel sad if I wasn't here. So sometimes I keep going for them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's out of pure spite, honestly. It's like a fuck you, universe. You think you can defeat me? Fuck you. I'm going to keep living out of spite. I don't care. Sometimes it's that. And sometimes it can be as simple as I wanted to see the next episode of my favorite TV show. Every day it changes.
I love that, though. I mean, that's part of life, right? What gets me out of bed every day is not ever really the same either. I don't know that I got the spite gene yet, though. I do need that, though, because there's definitely a lot of people that I would like to be like, fuck you, I'm still here, bitch. And then keep it moving.
Same for me. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get up. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be like, you know what? Either you like me today or you don't. But you know what? I'm going to move on with my life.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like I am suffering right now and it's about to be everyone else's problem.
I love that you say that, though. I feel like not a lot of people own up to that, but literally.
I mean, we have to talk about it, right? That's the thing. Yeah. That's what I've learned after going through so much battles with anxiety attacks and everything. I've learned that keeping things bottled up inside and not talking about them and not expressing them is where you start to be debilitated by your mental health issues that you suffer with. So that's what I've learned to do over time, is just to be like, you know what? This is what it is.
Yeah. How old were you when you had your first anxiety attack? Do you remember?
Oh, so my first anxiety attack, I think it was maybe I want to say like 19. I want to say 19 is when I had my first anxiety attack. Because before that, it was like deep depression. I'd gone through clinical depression at 17 and I didn't feel a thing. I stopped feeling, my emotions. And I felt like I was a ghost in my own body and very like disconnected from myself. And when I was 19, it was when I was in college. That is when I had my first anxiety attack. But that was a one and done. Mm-hmm. And then like maybe 2 to 3 years later, I started to have extremely debilitating anxiety attacks. And I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't figure out what was happening because I felt like nothing in my life had changed. So it just felt like out of left field for me. And it was happening at the most random times. And I really didn't understand anxiety at that point. I just associated it with like, oh, something's happening to make you anxious. So then you're anxious. But I didn't know that it could be, like something like generalized anxiety disorder. And I remember going to the urgent care because I felt like I couldn't breathe. And, I had all the symptoms of like what I thought to be a heart attack. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. So I left work, went there. And I remember the devastation that I felt when the doctor there was like, yeah, it's just anxiety. I'm like, yeah, but I don't understand why I would have anxiety. I'm just living my normal life. There's not really anything going on. And he was like, well, this is just who you are. You are a person with anxiety. And I remember how devastated I felt because I was like, what do you mean this is who I am? I'm not anxiety. Like, I don't want to be this person. I felt like it was like a death sentence when he said that to me. So yeah.
I hate to bring this up again. G-Rex is going to kill me about it. But have you seen Inside Out 2?
I have seen Inside Out 2. Yeah, okay. It's an amazing movie.
Okay. I keep telling G-Rex one day she's going to watch it because I suffer from anxiety myself. And I was telling her that the character anxiety in Inside Out 2 literally like nailed it on the head for me because I didn't know how to explain what I go through, like what it feels like for me until I saw that movie. And I was like, fuck. I was like, that's it. I remember like being in tears in the theater because I was like, oh, finally, like there was a picture to it. Because it's always just inside my head or inside my body. And it's never anything anybody else can see. So.
Absolutely. And it's hard dealing with that when you feel like people around you can't understand what's going on. And I had the unfortunate circumstance of being the first person in my family to have to address those types of issues, the anxiety and the depression. So everyone was like, you're fucking nuts. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're going to go to a therapist? Really? Eye roll? Like, what are you going to do? Talk about us? Like, it was that kind of thing.
Why is that everybody's go-to?
Yeah,
it's so true.
Yeah. Everybody's go-to is like, so you're going to talk about us? Like,
yeah.
And it's
so it's
not
my
everything
fault.
is about you.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is exactly why I'm going because you're a narcissist.
I love that.
So as you get that diagnosis, like from the urgent care, like, did they offer you any solutions or did they just be like, oh, you got anxiety, deuces, I'm out?
Yeah, it was like, you have anxiety, deuces, I'm out. And they may have mentioned some therapy, but at that point in time, like I had tuned out whatever he was saying after he said that.
So that was you.
That's me. So it took a while after that for me to get to a point where I was like, okay, I literally cannot live like this. What do people do when they have anxiety? And I hopped on Google and they're like, okay, go to therapy. So I went to a therapist, and that's when I started to gain a better understanding of what might have been going on with me. And started, like, my therapist gave me homework of like, hey, why don't you keep track of where you are and what's the common denominators that are happening when you have these anxiety attacks? Because that was my first concern, is like, I don't understand why I'm having anxiety. Nothing in my life has changed. Like, I should be fine. And I realized it was really weird. It was like in situations where I can leave, but it would be incredibly inconvenient to leave. Like after you'd purchased a movie ticket at a movie theater, so you're sitting down to watch a movie and you can leave, but you've already paid, right? Or you're in the car or something like that. You're going somewhere, like, yeah, you can always get out of a car, but that would be weird in the middle of the road. That was the common denominator in all the situations where I was having panic attacks. And then I realized how that related to my life at the time. It was like I was with my family and I felt very responsible for helping them, but And I could leave, I could do my own thing, but it would be incredibly selfish of me to leave, which is just how I felt. That wasn't the reality, but it was how I felt. And so I figured out over a long time, painfully, of like, oh, and I thought to myself, like, wow, my brain is like literally working against me. Like, how did you come up with this bullshit? Like, this weird thing for me to have to decode. But yeah, that's what I discovered. And I was like, oh man.
That makes me laugh.
Right?
Feeling
Like, how
betrayed
does
by
your
your own
brain-
mind. I
Yeah,
know.
seriously.
Okay.
Like, why would you do this? Like Da Vinci Code bullshit.
Yeah.
Like-
I love that. I love that. I can relate to that feeling though of like wanting so bad to just escape whatever it is that's making me anxious, but realizing like, first of all, it's not. I get super anxious in cars. Like fucking, I don't know. I don't know why. And I swear the older I get, the worse it gets. And we were doing a road trip from Georgia to Florida. And of course, it was like right before Christmas. So like traffic is already fucked because we're in Georgia. Now we got the holiday. And just being literally stuck in traffic and wanting so bad to crawl out of my body that I wanted to be like, fuck it, I'll walk. I'm like, I cannot be in this situation anymore. And then I'm like, maybe don't get out of the car on the highway, you know?
Yeah, sometimes I do want to just like say, fuck it. Like if I have to be tortured, like why don't I just get out of the car like a complete psychopath and just like say, I wish this was acceptable to do, but unfortunately it's not. We just have to learn ways to cope. And it kind of sucks.
And so like, what are some of those things you do to help you cope so that, you don't do the things that like we say to ourselves in our head? Like, you don't tell somebody to fuck off. I mean, you want to tell them that, but it's in the back of your head. So like, how do you manage that?
So I have always loved writing since I was a little girl. And that has helped me in a lot of ways. I'll give you an example. I was working at this corporate office and every day I dealt with so much bullshit. I wanted to quit, but I was like, okay, I'm obviously not going to quit. So I would write my resignation letter and I would just say all kinds of things like, fuck you, I hate you, you're so stupid, this is blah, blah, blah. And I would get really specific, write the whole thing. And then afterwards, I would trash it at the end of the day. But all day I was adding to it. Like as they actively piss me off, I also like just journal now a lot more. And then the other thing that I do is just talk about it, right? So like on my podcast, I talk about mental health things that I go through all the time, because what I have found over the years is a lot of things have happened, a lot of traumatic events had happened to me. And I didn't talk about them because I felt like it was unsafe to share these things with people. I observed so many relationships around me where you can tell someone something because they're your friend or because they're your family member and you have a good relationship with them. But then when things go wrong, they kind of use that against you. They might throw it out in a moment of anger. And I just felt like I didn't want to give people that kind of ammunition against me ever. So in short, I was like, okay, I'm not going to talk about these things, or maybe people won't understand them. And through bottling it up, it exacerbated the issue and caused me to deal with things like anxiety attacks, panic attacks, deep clinical depression. It was all things that I hadn't talked about. And even things that I didn't think about, because what I found was I would be thinking about something that maybe it just, the thought pops up in your mind, like a pop-up on the internet. And you're just like, oh, I don't want to think about this. That's what I would do. I'd say, I don't want to think about this. And I'll try to think about something else because everybody says you should think about, positive things and rewire your brain to think positively. So I tried that and it fucked me over because I realized I was like, my brain was popping these things up because I needed to deal with them. I needed to process them. And then I started to have empathy for myself. So now it's like something will pop up, a situation in the past, and I'll tell myself, like, I didn't deserve for that to happen to me. That was horrible. I hate the way that they made me feel in that situation. I will never allow myself to get into a situation like that again or allow anybody to make me feel that way. I feel really sad for my younger self that I had to go through that. And that's what I tell myself. And that's how I process the thought. And then I've found over time that by doing that, those thoughts don't pop up anymore as often.
Are you someone who tries to drive while distracted by your phone? Someone who props it on the steering wheel or peeks down at it for a glance, or just scrolls and scrolls. If so, you could be the next person to get into a fender bender, get a ticket, veer off the road, or even cause a crash that kills you or someone else. Enough already. Put the phone away or pay. Paid for by NHTSA.
NetCredit is here to say yes to a personal loan or line of credit when other lenders say no. Apply in minutes and get a decision as soon as the same day. Loans offered by NetCredit or lending partner banks and serviced by NetCredit. Application subject to review and approval. Learn more at netcredit.com/partner. NetCredit. Credit to the people.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp.
I can't sleep.
What is it now?
It's the company. It's chaos.
What's chaos now?
The numbers, the expenses, the books. What if we get audited?
No one's gonna audit you at 3 a.m. Go to sleep.
I can't sleep.
You could if you used Ramp.
Who said that?
I don't care because they're right. Go to sleep and sign up for Ramp in the morning, Jerry.
Ramp is the corporate card that handles all your tedious financial operations automatically, integrates directly with your ERP, and gives you complete control over every transaction. Ramp gives you everything you need for bulletproof books and a better night's sleep.
Wow. That is exactly what my company needs.
Yes, and exactly what I also need. Go to sleep, Jerry.
Upgrade to Ramp for free today and get $250 at ramp.com. That's ramp.com. RAMP.com.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
So it was like, I figured out like, oh, okay, so I just need to address this. I need to like process and go through my feelings of sadness or anger towards the situation or whatever I have. And then I can come out the other side. And that's kind of what I do. And then, I'll have a glass of wine every now and then. I'll dance, I'll put on some music and I'll dance it out, go on walks and things like that. But yeah, like those are some of the things that I do to cope.
Yeah, I love that. When you like chuck things in the fuck it bucket and like don't deal with it, it always comes back to bite you in the ass, right? Like, oh yeah, I'll deal with this on another day. And then like something else happens, chuck it in the fuck it bucket. And then it all like comes together. And when you're not dealing with it, that's when it gets really bad. And I know for myself. So, when I wanted to take my life in December 2022, that's the problem is like, number one, I didn't know how to deal with it because I didn't understand what was going on with me, nor did I know how to talk about it because I didn't have the tools. Right. And so like when I, finally let everybody know what was going on, they were terrified. And so now, like I got really depressed in November. Everybody knows what's going on. Like I was super open with it. And I decided that if you don't like me then, I don't care. You know what? I felt better. I felt better because I actually opened up and didn't keep it all bottled up. But, I'm a lot older than you guys are too. We were taught not to talk about it. And now that I talk about it, apparently I have a little bit of diarrhea in the mouth. So, it's all good.
Unfortunately, that doesn't make much of a difference in terms of age because me growing up, like, yeah, people did not talk about it. That's why I didn't really understand the depression, the anxiety. And even when I did speak up about it, finally, like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. My parents were like, yeah, maybe you just need to like relax and stop being so dramatic. And, all of those things, like, yeah. So that's kind of what I got. And again, like the therapy thing, I was like the weirdo of my family. Like, she's fucking nuts. She's crazy. Like, she's going to go to therapy to talk shit about us. Like, it was that reaction. So, I grew up with similar circumstances, unfortunately. And I think it's only in the recent years where people really started to understand and adapt to mental health, even though there's still a ton of stigma against it. Now I think is when people have started to kind of understand it more. But yeah, I was the first one. And now I think, like, me being a pioneer in my family for that, not that I ever would have wanted to be, has helped some of my family members. It helped my dad be able to identify that, oh, this is what this feeling is that I feel sometimes, this anxiety. And my mom be able to, and they didn't give me credit for that, but now she's able to say like, oh yes, I'm feeling depressed. Whereas when I was growing up, like, that is not something that they would have ever been able to identify. But through having conversations with me, even though they were like talking down to me, but hearing what I had to say, it was like, oh, they kind of understand. And now it's mirroring something that they've been feeling. And now they have a name for it. I think it's very powerful to be able to name what you're feeling. Like, oh, this is depression.
Yeah, totally. And I think we have come, it's weird because sometimes I think we've come far, like, in discussing mental health and like making it like a normal conversation to have, and like that there's nothing wrong with talking about how you're feeling. And then there are other days where I'm just like, how are we so far off? Like, how are we still not in a place where we're taking it seriously? Like, where being depressed and having anxiety is going to change how I'm able to show up every day or not be able to show up every day. And like, it drives me crazy that we're still sometimes struggling to prove that there's something going on in this brain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so unseen, right? And it's so rough because it's hard for a lot of people to understand if they haven't been through it themselves. And it's hard because some people don't have a huge propensity for empathy. They just don't. They're just, that's why you can see certain people and you're like, oh, they're very empathetic. And some people, those, soft skills are very low or non-existent. And so they just can't understand unless they had gone through it themselves. And I think that's where a lot of the stigma comes from. And also because feeling depressed and feeling anxious is it's such a broad term, because you can feel like temporarily depressed about a specific situation, or you can feel anxious about a presentation coming up. And then, that anxiety quells itself, but they don't understand that this is like a constant chronic thing, which is why it becomes a mental health problem. I think that's also a gap in understanding. And then the other side of it too is like mental health. There's so many different illnesses that are within mental health. And a lot of them are still not widely talked about or understood, because if people have to deal with you on an interpersonal level and your mental health problems like annoy them, right, or inconvenience them, they just don't want to understand that. They feel like it's an excuse, like, and it's very unfortunate. So,
yeah. Or they're like, well, everybody's depressed, just so I can shake it off.
Yeah.
What?
Or, but what's really important is like podcasts like, yours and ours, right? We're out there spreading the message and trying to normalize this. But I think where the most work we have to do is within corporations themselves, right? It starts from the C-suite all the way down. And we need to normalize how we can have these conversations even at work. Right. And I think what happens is people just don't understand. And the more we can educate people, the better equipped they are to deal with, employees that have mental health issues. Right. And maybe be a little bit less of a dick. Can we be a little bit less of a dick? Can we just work on that?
The issue too, I think, in corporate environments, as somebody who's worked adjacent to a lot of CEOs, is that they themselves suffer from mental health issues. A lot of them have thrown themselves into, working constantly, the grind, as they would call it. Like, they throw themselves into that because they're avoiding other issues. And then they start to place their sense of self-worth with what they're able to accomplish. And so if somebody else isn't able to accomplish something, they view them as like less than, because it's just now become their value system. And a lot of them, again, like, they've suffered from a lot of mental health issues. So I feel like that sort of trickles down. And that is another problem that's very difficult to address, which is like, people can be dealing with different kinds of mental health issues and not be able to have empathy or like understand when somebody else is dealing with something, because now they don't have the tools. Those tools within themselves are diminished. So when everybody at your workplace is depressed because it's toxic, now nobody has a lot of patience for each other. Right. But I think a solution for that would probably just be to normalize having some sort of like therapist, just kind of like how you do at school. You know, you might have a school nurse, like having someone in-house counsel for just everyone at their workplace. That might be a nice solution.
I know. You're saying all of the things that just, I don't know why we aren't already doing this, but I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's like everybody is, when you're working in a toxic work environment, everybody to some degree is going through something similar, right? And like how we're handling it could be different. And, you know, it's hard to not think your boss is a fucking asshole, because in reality, he's probably like also, you know, going through the same shit, but it's just, it sucks.
And it's part of the disease, right? Like part of the disease is to reject help. Part of the disease is sometimes being a dick. You know what I mean? And to want people to get away from you. I mean, even like something like depression, that does, you want to isolate, you want get away from me. Some people, it's like denial. Like, I don't want to feel like I have something wrong with me. It's a part of a lot of mental health diseases to be that way, which is like the rough part, right? It's like a virus is taking over your body and you're the host, and like, it's going to stop you from getting help. Everything that depression like causes as a symptom is the opposite of what you should, you know, what you want to do to cure it, right? It wants you to stay inside, close the shades, go under your blankets, don't talk to anyone, you know, all of those things, because the end result is your death, right? So it's just like any other physical illness. But to fight it, you have to go outside, you have to get some sunlight, you have to talk to your friends, you have to tell people what's going on. It's extremely difficult. But I think that's what's happening across the board, is like, we don't realize in having these mental health illnesses, it's causing symptoms that make it hard for people to talk to each other, have empathy for each other, get some help. They don't even want to admit that they need help, because look at what we're saying. It's like, we grew up under the conditions of everybody telling us like, oh, you're a fucking psycho if you need a therapist. Like, you know?
Yeah, you might as well go to a mental institution at that point.
Right.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And I just think that like if we equipped are you feeling any of these feelings? Like, and then having somebody within the company that they can talk to. Yeah, they all have EAP programs, but you know, like sometimes
having
they
it
don't
be
work.
a person. Yeah. Also, like, let's not talk about like the companies that are like, hey, yeah, we have this checklist, we have this questionnaire, you fill it out, and then an AI will tell you how to feel better. Like, no. Doesn't fucking work for some people. Like, I need a person to talk to.
Yeah, I need a person. I need a person, like a physical person. And I'll tell you right now, too, if I had gotten that at any one of my employers, like a checklist, like, hey, are you feeling this way to get some help? I would deny. I would not admit to that. I wouldn't know how they were going to use the information. There would have to be a lot of work from the top down for them to kind of prove and illustrate that, like, they champion this. They understand this. They don't want anyone to feel as if like by having this, they're less than. There would have to be a lot of verbal work and like, you know, them talking about that as part of the company culture for somebody like me to trust that I could even put that down and it wouldn't be used against me in the future. Like, oh, we have to fire you because like,
for sure. If I don't feel safe, I'm for sure not going to open up and tell you about my deep dark thoughts that happen every day.
Or even if it was just a checklist that they did for themselves, they didn't give it to somebody else. Like, if you check this box, you know, like what's that emotion you're feeling, so that they can kind of do some dig deep into what they're going through, right? Without even talking to their manager or whatever, but giving them a tool so that they can figure out kind of what's going on in their head, because Google only goes so far, I'm telling you.
Google goes really, you know, only so far. They're always like, just call the crisis line, which I have done. I have done before. I remember one day I was like, okay, I'm going to kill myself. And I'm like, let me call the suicide hotline. And I was put on like a 20-minute hold. And I was like, but it actually kind of saved my life at the same time, because I thought it was hilarious. I was like, this has to be some sort of cosmic joke. I am on hold. I'm on literal hold for a suicide hotline when I'm just like literally ready to just end it all. And then I started laughing. And then I was like, you know what? fuck this. Like, this whole place is a joke. Like, I can't even deal with this. So yeah. But there's a lot of resources, but there's a lot of work to be done in terms of how people think about those resources and how to better disseminate them. I once watched somebody have a full-on mental breakdown, and unfortunately the only thing to do was call the cops, and the cops that arrived have had no training or clue on how to deal with that. And they were like horrible the way that they went about it. They treated the person like a complete criminal. And so, yeah, I mean, even systems like that, there should be someone else that you could call to, like, you know, help a person that's going through a real crisis, but there's just not.
Yeah. And help just de-escalate the situation before it gets bad, right? Because you're right. Like, not all professionals are equipped with the tools to help somebody that's going through a mental health crisis. And it sucks. And as a society, we need to do better. We just need to do better.
And having these kinds of conversations and hearing other people's stories about what depression looks like for them helps, because I think sometimes, you know, what one person thinks depression is, if they're not, you know, if they don't meet that criteria of what they believe it to be, then they will never know, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And then how do you get help?
It shows up differently.
Right. And then how do you help yourself when you don't even know what to do? It's like, the conversations, I think, need to keep happening, and, you know, people need to keep sharing their stories and what they're going through and what worked for them and how they sought the help for the masses.
It's crazy and it's sad all at the same time. And, you know, for me, like, I didn't have a toolkit, but, you know, the day after I called 988, I was on the phone with a therapist. Mm-hmm. And, like, I still use those tools today. But, like, at the time, I didn't know what was going on because they don't teach us this shit in school, right? Did any of you learn about mental wellness or mental health in school? I know I didn't.
No, like in college, yes, I took courses specific to that just because I wanted to. But yeah, growing up K through 12, absolutely no way. Like, there was no classes. There was nothing. I mean, there was just like DARE, like, don't do drugs. But there wasn't anything telling you, like, you know, how to cope with depression. But I'm not surprised by that because, again, like, growing up, people didn't view it as like a real thing. It was the way that it was presented to me on television and in movies was all just saying, like, psychologists are a quack, and, like, you know, feeling this way is just means you're crazy and you should be locked up. And that was what I was seeing in the media, and that was what it seemed like everybody else also believed. So I'm not really surprised there wasn't resources, but it's not good. I think that really needs to change, especially because we have such an obvious issue with mental health in this country. And, you know, unfortunately, students coming to school, killing themselves, killing others, like all kinds of things going on. And they're very vocal about it now. So it's, you know, there is like a really big need.
Yeah, but there's so much more concern about banning books and not saying the word gay in school and shit like that. Like, you know, our kids, this next generation, they need our help, right? They need their help so that they're better equipped than we are to deal with the shit when it hits us. I mean, like, they need to be able to name their emotions.
Yeah, think of how much better we would be, how much more equipped for life we would have been had this been something we were taught when we were young.
So true. So true. And I will say, I think others, you know, even politically, others saying that, you know, we don't need this and, like, we're concerned about banning books and things of that nature. To me, I always think about the fact that our political system is set up such that it attracts people with dark triad illnesses. It attracts people with narcissistic tendencies and with, you know, psychopathy. And so it's not really actually surprising that we're seeing a lack of empathy, right? It's not really that surprising because those types of jobs, those types of, you know, positions attract that personality and reward that personality, actually. And so that's why a lot of people, you hear them saying, like, yes, a lot of, you know, high-powered individuals, whether in corporations or whether politically, probably are people who skew that way. And I remember asking, you know, ChatGPT, like, what do you think it would be like, or don't you think there should be like a test to, you know, kind of weed that out in terms of positions of political leadership? And ChatGPT was like, I don't think that would be fair. I think, you know, psychopaths sometimes can have the ability to make decisions where it's non-emotional. And I was like, oh shit, we're fucked.
Turns out it's not ChatGPT. It's somebody in that position just answering your questions.
Yeah, actually.
Actually, I take offense. Just kidding.
Are you someone who tries to drive while distracted by your phone? Someone who props it on the steering wheel or peeks down at it for a glance? Or just scrolls and scrolls? If so, you could be the next person to get into a fender bender, get a ticket, veer off the road, or even cause a crash that kills you or someone else. Enough already. Put the phone away or pay. Paid for by NHTSA.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, fucked. We're fucked. We're all fucked, guys.
Yeah, that's the conclusion. We're all fucked. This is, final season of the world. No.
make the best of your day.
We are and we aren't, right? Because, like I said, for like podcasts like ours and people that actually really give a shit, we're out there trying to make a difference and make a change and normalize having these conversations. And people are starting to open up. I will tell you, 4 years ago, there weren't hardly any mental health discussions on LinkedIn or across most other social media platforms. You look today, there's a ton of work being done in this area. And I think it's because people want to see a shift. And that gives me a little bit of hope.
Yeah, that gives me hope too. There has been a marked shift in the last couple of years on talking about mental health. That is absolutely the truth. And I see that more people are becoming psychologists and want to help as well. So we're getting more resources. There have been companies that have been created to try to help, whether they're adjacent, or providing therapists or adjacent to that, like, Headspace and things of that nature. But there are, things in the market trying to address this problem. And I think that's very helpful. And I love having different resources. Like the podcast for me, my podcast is like a form of therapy. I don't know for you guys, but it's like a form of therapy, right? Like just talking about it.
100%. Like it's our free therapy. It really is.
Because we get to learn from our guests as well. Or they're able to put words to feelings or thoughts, or I don't know, it helps you feel less alone.
Yeah, feeling less alone.
Feeling less alone. Like we just recorded our season 9 ender. And like all the things that we learned from season 9, like it made all the stars align for both of us. And I'm super excited about that. I'm like, my goal for 2025 is to bring joy.
Aw, that is so sweet.
That is my goal.
Such a tender heart.
Yeah, such a tender goal. It's like the pageant girl answer. I just want to bring joy.
World peace.
World peace.
Yeah. But I know you're genuine about it. That's why it's like, oh.
I want to give everybody $1 million. Yeah, but like, the next couple of years are going to be really hard on a lot of us. But, what we can do is go out and find our joy and fight for the things that we don't think are right. And that's going to help my mental health and probably not watching TV. Okay. Because
definitely
it's just not going to be good.
Yeah, at least not that kind of TV. I will escape into the fantasy of everything. I've bought plenty of books. I've got Audible downloaded so I can listen to things. I always will look out of my kitchen window and I'll see birds and that'll make me happy. There are small joys that you can embrace in life. And that's something that I've learned over time, like little things that you can really just be thankful for. And I love that too. But yeah, just talking to each other. And I think the good news too is that when people face like a lot of opposition, a lot of like horrible things going on, is usually the thing that's needed to kind of strike a match and like cause a lot of change, because it feels like you have no choice but to do something about it. And that's usually where people kind of step up to the plate, because real amazing leaders, people that are quite capable of making changes, they're usually reluctant leaders, right? You usually see somebody that's such a good person, but they're like, I would never try to overtake anything, because they have humility. So that trait isn't like the kind of trait where you'll see them stepping into positions of leadership unless people push them. And that's usually the case, right? But when you need a hero, they are somehow appearing in history. So I'm kind of hopeful about things like that.
That's nice. I like that.
Today, anyway.
That's how we feel today.
Hopeful to a point.
Right. Hopeful to a point. Yeah. Sometimes I get really angry about the way that I feel hopeful sometimes. Sometimes I don't even want to feel hopeful. I'm like, why do I have so much, like, why do I still feel some measure of hope when I just want to give in to this apathy? Sometimes I get mad about my inability to stop, like, having some small hope. But, things are still positive in certain aspects of my life, and I'm grateful for that. So,
yeah, I love that. Okay, question time. Go back in time to a younger version of yourself and give yourself a bit of advice. What would you say? And how old are you when you go back in time?
I am 5 years old when I go back in time, and I would tell her to think about herself more and to speak up, and don't allow her anonymity her autonomy. Sorry. I tell her not to allow her autonomy to be stripped from her piece by piece, and to speak up more, and to, like, put herself first, to live for herself. That's what I would tell her, because I remember at 5 years old, as insane as that sounds, I had the beginnings of sadness in my life, and I noticed everything around me. And I think people underestimate that children can understand and notice everything around them, even if they're not commenting on it. And it was kind of the first time where I sort of went into myself, if you will. Like, I sort of, caved into myself, and everything became more inward. And I used fantasy to escape that. I read books all the time. I was a bookworm. I started writing and all of these things that I used for escape. But that's when I started to get in my head more, and it never kind of stopped. And I stopped trusting the people around me. So I stopped speaking up. All of these sort of things started when I was 5. So that's what I would go back and tell her. Like, speak up. Don't allow your autonomy to be stripped from you, and stand up for yourself and put yourself first. And I like to think that she would listen to this version of me, because I'd be like, look, honey, this is what's going to fucking happen. You don't want this shit to happen, do you? No, you don't.
What would you say has been the hardest lesson that you've had to learn?
Ooh, the hardest lesson that I have had to learn is that no one is coming to save you. You have to save yourself. And also that on the other side of trusting people is where you can find love and you can find real relationships. And learning that has been especially difficult, because I'm a person prone to not trusting others, always wanting to protect myself. And because of that, not allowing people to really know me. I'm always safeguarding the most, me parts of myself, and just only telling people things that I feel like, okay, I don't care if you share this with 1 million people. It doesn't really matter to me, because I'm always concerned about protecting myself. I don't want to be hurt. But I've learned, unfortunately, if you want real love, real relationships with others, you have to trust them. And I'm still trying to be brave enough to do that.
I can relate 1,000%. 1,000%. You like nailed it, because I think I'm very similar in that until just hearing you say that, I didn't realize what it was. Like, I feel like I don't always share the inner part of myself, but I saw it as like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, why can't you do that? And hearing you say that, yeah, I think to some degree we are all protecting a bit of ourselves. And I think that's exactly what stops me. I'm like, no, like, I'm protecting that inner part. So not everybody knows.
Yeah. And it's a bad issue for me. I mean, I thought about sharing a song today that I had been listening to, just as an example. I was going to share it with some of my friends, and I was like, no, they're probably not going to get it. They'll probably judge me. And then I probably will feel a way about like that, and it'll ruin the song for me. So I'm not going to share this song, and nobody needs to know that I like this song, because they're just not going to get it. It's something so small, but it's just like, part of my system of like just distrusting people and not allowing them to know me. And it's just like, it's ridiculous, actually. It's actually really ridiculous, but yeah.
I get it.
I totally get it. So I have a couple questions. What is your favorite word? That word is so amazing.
It's so cathartic.
It is. Like, it's the best word out there. What's your least favorite word?
Ooh. Don't.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, what does summer do for self-love and self-care?
Self-love and self-care, taking baths once a week and just going in for a soak has been so nice. I've got the good fortune of having a jet tub, so I get to enjoy that, put some bath bombs in there, just relax. So amazing. The other thing I do is watch my comfort shows. So I like to watch Bob's Burgers, or I'll watch The Nanny with Fran Drescher, or I'll watch Supernatural, and I'll just lean into the comfort. Skincare is another thing that I'll do. So I will, go through my 10-step skincare and just really love on myself and enjoy it. And then writing. I love writing. I love creating stories. I feel like a god. I get to create my own worlds, my own characters, and get to torture them and like give them joy, take it away, give them joy, take it away. So I do that. And then going to bookstores makes me happy. Being out in nature makes me happy. And podcasting, I like podcasting. That is something I view as a form of self-care because I get to just get a weight off my chest and get to talk to lovely people like you guys and so many others.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on, Summer. And thank you for the very candid conversation. And I just appreciate you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys for having me. This is an amazing podcast. Please keep going and doing what you're doing because it's so lovely. I tune in all the time. So I really love this podcast. Thank you so much.
I do have another question for you. How can our listeners find you and your podcast?
You can find my podcast by going to sdanxious.com. That's S as in stressed, D as in depressed, anxious.com. It's got all the links to anywhere you want to listen to the show. The show is called Stressed, Depressed, and Anxious. And yeah, love you.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you so much. Hi, all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm G-Rex.
And I'm Dirty Skittles.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. We'd love to listen to your feedback.
We can't do this without you guys.
It's okay to be not okay. Just make sure you're talking to someone.